Hello, and welcome to the Change of Plans podcast. I'm Anita Azizi, and this is a podcast where we talk about unexpected turns, bold moves, and what happens when life doesn't go according to plan. Each episode, I sit down with people who've changed careers, taken risks, or completely redefined what success looks to them. We talk about the messy middles, the lessons learned, and why sometimes the best things happen when the plan falls apart. So whether you're in the middle of a pivot, thinking about making a change, or just here for the stories, welcome, and let's get into it. Today I'm joined by someone who has spent years shaping the startup world from the inside, Dash Markova. Dash has worked with founders at every stage, from early ideas to scaling businesses. She's designed and launched accelerator programs, coached startup teams, and built communities that give entrepreneurs the support they actually need. Her work spans innovation, entrepreneurship, and the future of work, helping startups turn ideas into real sustainable businesses. In this episode, we talk about what really makes a startup succeed, how to avoid the biggest pitfalls in early days, and why narrative building is just as important as product development. We also get into Dash's personal career pivots, what she's learned from launching her own ventures, and what founders often don't realize about making it in the startup world. If you're a founder thinking about becoming one, or just love a good conversation about building something from scratch, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for not canceling on me, even though you had a full ride. If you were sick, it's fine.
No, it was good, of course. Now I feel much better and ready.
Nice, because I've actually properly prepared for this episode. It had structure. I properly stalked you.
Amazing.
And it has how many questions I have noted? Something like 20 questions, and then we can pick what we want to choose or skip.
Yes,
But
sure.
yeah. So the first thing that when I started stalking you, and the first thing that kind of stood out to me, the name of your freelance business, Dash Too Much. It's such a memorable name, and I like it so much. How did you come up with this?
Oh, thank you so much for saying it. So my name is Dash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to have something for my freelance business, something that will include my name, because it's not a proper company, right? It's just my personal branding. But I'm working very internationally, so I wanted something that will be really easy for people to understand. And I've noticed when working specifically in Asia, actually, that people were laughing a lot about the name Dash. Yeah, and they really were thinking about, I think, some anime characters or something like this, or saying like, oh, it's like someone who's fast. So I really wanted also to integrate it because I thought it would be a bit more funny. And then I was playing with different phrases that would include it. And a dash too much is an English phrase that means a little bit too much. So yeah, that just came from that. And I have got so much criticism on that.
Really?
Yes. Every second person tells me that, why so negative? And aren't you supposed to highlight how cool you are? Why is it like too much? You're not too much. Like,
But I really like this also because I was like, when I saw it for like Dash Too Much, I'm like, oh, okay, I see it. It's about her name. But then I was like, oh, a little bit too much, which could be like a negative connotation. But then I was like, no, that's cool, because it's also like a woman business, and then we're always criticized for like, oh, you're doing too much of this or too much of that, you're too loud or you're too quiet or you're too standoffish. Like, yeah, I'm just too much. Just
yes.
accept it.
It's a bit. It's definitely embracing that I have also had so many interests, so much energy. Sometimes people, would feel a bit in a way that, I'm very intense. Mm-hmm. So because of that definitely it's embracing this quality of mine that I actually really like.
Yeah. Also for me, like I never struggle to conceptualize the project or like come up with a project or something like that. But I always struggle with a good name. Like I had a podcast about feminist movement in Central Asia, and the name was Feminism Prism, which is, people really liked it. And I didn't, because I needed a name, and then I switched S to Z's in the name because my surname is Azizi, so I wanted like some reflection of that. And for this podcast, the idea was like, I just need a project and I want it to be regular. I want things to happen and I don't want to overthink it. Mm-hmm. And so the initial idea was to call it monthly. Uh-huh. To like, monthly, there's always will be something, there will be an episode, but that's the whole concept. And then yeah, that's a bit, I don't know how I'm going to go to pitch it to people. Like, it's whatever, just has to happen monthly. And then I was kind of going around in my head and settled on change of plans. First, it was passion project, but then there were like 3 passion project podcasts up already.
Yeah.
Then I came up with change of plans, and it, like, Google didn't really show me anything, but there was like a slide change of plans. Anyways, I came up with this. I do like the idea. I'm not completely digging that it's like kind of long, kind of does not reflect my name, but Azizi podcast was taken by my brother. I don't know, guys, go listen if anyone wants. He's also very
I think
much
it's a
into
great
change of
name.
plans.
To be honest, I think it is really good, and the topic is so relevant. So with all the changes also in our economy, with all the AI coming, people have to change their plans, right?
Yeah,
We need to be very
collapsing.
flexible. So, so I think that's like an amazing topic for so many people to find out. Okay, so how do people actually do this?
Great. Thank you so much for the perfect transition into more questions. So let's go back to your freelance work. And based on my research, your work spans coaching, consulting, and change management across many sectors. So very diverse clients, I can imagine. And what is your approach to meet their needs in very diverse range of topics, but also organizing yourself as a freelancer?
Yes, sure. So I do focus mostly on entrepreneurship and even more on impact entrepreneurship, right? I would say focusing on the specific topics is actually quite hard often because I get requests for all types of gigs and freelance gigs. So I'm unfortunately doing mostly warm projects. So that means people come to me and they ask me to do something. I do not sell currently. Yeah, I used to, and maybe I will start again. But right now it is very warm. And that is my current struggle to narrow it down more so that I do not take on projects that are too far away from what I'm interested in. So this is like regarding the freelance and the specific services. Here the same goes. Yeah, I have experience with everything like from consulting, advisory, mentoring, public speaking, and I'm actually trying to narrow it down more because let's say when I get a request for coaching, maybe this is not my strongest skill, so I would like to eliminate this type of gigs. Yeah, so that's the struggle to narrow down currently.
And regarding self-management, so again, I know your profile now quite good, but if someone doesn't, there are all the links in the comments, in the description. But basically, yeah, you say the clients come to you, it's very warm now. Is there threshold for you where like, okay, now I have enough gigs, or like now it's going to be too much if I take on, or like, oh, I could take it on, but then I'll have to sacrifice a little bit of like me time? Because I know you also took a career break to recharge.
Yes, exactly. So right now, maybe I would like to share a bit like why am I doing? I am doing right now freelance activities, second time in my life. So at one moment I founded, then I founded some more, then I left all of those companies and I was doing freelancing for, I think 2 years, I think. There was like pure freelancing. And after that, I joined a company. And when I left for a sabbatical a year ago, I was recharging and rethinking. And then I came out and I have some ideas like what I'm like actually playing with a new idea to start something new. But now while I'm still working on it, I'm doing my freelance gigs. Yeah. So that's basically my status. So I'm kind of not looking on my freelance gigs as a forever type of activity. So to answer your question, how do I pick, how do I do kind of this personal freelance career management is I have a certain amount of hours per week that I have planned for working on my own idea and for having gigs and also looking out for other opportunities. So generally I have after trying all the types of careers, like freelance and founder and working for a company, I'm very agnostic, actually. I do not really care what the type of contract I'm on. It's more about what exactly I'm doing and what kind of value I'm adding. And so because of that, I have like this kind of every week I have certain amount of hours that I plan for each type of activity. And sometimes one of them will overrule. Let's say next week, for example, I have everything filled up with freelance activities. So then I know that week after that, I should have more time for some like working on my own idea.
And I'm going to get back to that because I know you are not once, not twice, not even 3 times founder. I think it's a bit more than that. But since we touched on your career break, and I have taken a career break. It wasn't planned. It was kind of happened to me. And I'm happy it did. But talking about you, so taking a planned break. I'm struggling with English this morning. It's very complicated for me. Taking a planned break is a big decision, especially in such a fast-paced environment. Like I was out of my startup for vacation for 2 weeks. I struggled so much to disconnect because so many things were happening anyways. And yeah, so how long was your career break?
So right now, I would say it was 6 months long. After that, I started the freelancing again. Yeah. So originally I planned it only for 3 months, but after 3 months, I was just restored.
Nice.
I haven't started experimenting with anything at all, exploring my next steps. I was just finally relaxed and restored and slept out, So it was actually quite scary to take a step. And I think what people often don't think about when they look at me or other people like me, I have made changes in my career multiple times. And people think that I'm just kind of like I'm built different, like I'm not scared. But that's not true. I am scared shitless and each time, but just the alternative cost is too high. Yeah. I understand that, okay, in this setup, I will not reach my goals. It does not adhere to my values enough. And so I do not want to wake up when I'm 60 years old. Sorry.
Hey, Benjamin Button.
60 buttoning back, yeah. No, 60 years old and realize like, oh, wow, what have I been doing? So that is my kind of main motivation then to change. And so it was very scary. And then when I did jump, I thought like, oh, that was so stupid. Why couldn't I just start preparing my next step while I was working for someone? However, the reality is, I don't know, for me at least, that is this way. When I'm working for someone, it's very hard for me to really have some side time, really cut it away if it's not like my freelance kind of activity, right? So, yeah.
Absolutely agree with you. And I think this is illusion left from, I don't know, even pre-corona years that you can work full-time and then kind of have some healthy boundaries and like mental health and physical health and then having something on the side. Maybe it was possible during Corona. I think we, like a lot of us, changed dramatically and like our brain chemistry changed. I personally, like resonates with me a lot when having a full-time job, but then trying to build something on the side, it takes such a huge toll. So yeah, 100% agree with you. And the reason I also kind of really want to talk to you about the career break is this burnout pandemic that's going on. And whoever I would talk to, whether it's a startup, an NGO, a corporate, everybody's burnt out. And everybody's like, oh, how do we prevent this burnout?
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, economy is in shambles. There is no money to hire enough people. So everybody's doing work of 3 people. And of course, you're going to be burnt out. And so even when you work full-time, in like cases that I've seen, you don't work 1 full-time. You probably work 3 full-time jobs in 1 position. Of course, you're tired.
Yeah, I think it's also a lot about some kind of unrealistic expectations from how we work. To be honest, each time I went burnt out or close to burnout, I felt like the main culprit, the main guilty person here is me. Yeah. So first time I got really burnt out was when I was founding, and it was insane. Now when I'm looking back, it was just, how did I think this will work? But the thing, so for example, I was experimenting. Maybe you have heard about Leonardo da Vinci schedule. It's an absolute scam.
Tell me more.
Do not try it, okay? Do not try it at home, like in those videos. Because at one point it became very popular, the Leonardo da Vinci schedule, which was saying that you should sleep for like just 15 minutes. And you do not sleep at night fully, yeah? You sleep for 15 minutes, then you're active for 1.5 hours, then you sleep 15 minutes, and so on. And that Leonardo da Vinci was doing that. And it's not
cool,
true.
Love it for him. Probably all his house chores were also done for him.
Also, it's just not true. Like, there is no confirmation that actually that's what happened with Leonardo da Vinci. He might have been like snoozing for 12 hours, what we know, you know?
Exactly.
So basically, I was trying that. It was not really working. So I was doing like this 3 hours of sleep and then 1.5 hour, I think, of a nap then during the day. It was insane. Like, how did I think it will be okay? And so I got really burnt out, but also like overworking and all. And the problem with burnouts, you do not notice it very fast, only when you're very deep in. And so that was the issue. So when I started getting burnt out at my last job, like I didn't actually burn out in that, but I noticed some signs. I could see them way earlier, right? And so I knew how to kind of cut them short. But what I have also noticed, which is quite interesting, a big part of avoiding burnout is not being mentally present when you're out of work, right? And that means you're like less accessible for colleagues, for team members. And I think for me, it was interesting that some people told me like, oh, wow, like this last year you have been way less accessible. You seem like not as interested. But the truth is that I was just kind of like trying to keep it very healthy for myself. And yeah, I was not pushing like extra, basically. But yeah, it's definitely like people, when they notice the change, they often judge it negatively.
And so coming in from the career break, recharged, are there any new hobbies, new habits that you picked up and to support yourself and not to fall into that situation again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best habits are all around the basics. Like everyone knows what those are. Everyone knows. All meta research studies are agreeing on this. There's like really no mystery there. It's all about sleeping enough, eating well and healthy food, moving enough, whatever this way of moving is, and having healthy like socializing habits. And that's it.
Yeah, I love that meme. It's like, oh, going to the gym actually does help my mental health.
Yes, it's so irritating.
Regret to inform.
It's so irritating that all of those things work. It's like crazy. But like I've been trying basically to build up this structure for myself that will include, so that when I start kind of pushing more again, I already have the structure and I have all of those habits, and it will be easier to keep them up. So that's my plan, at least.
Great. So I'd like to talk to you right now about entrepreneurship and early stage growth, since, spoiler, we're in Berlin, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's every third person you'll meet is a startup founder. In Motion Lab, every first person, I think. So my question would be, so when working with founders in their first year, and I know you supported startups in different stages, what stage do you recommend to help them gain traction quickly? And are there specific milestones you advise early stage startups to focus on in their like first year or two?
Thank you a lot for this one. I'm really trying to share this type of information as widely as possible. And I have really worked with literally hundreds of founders. I have advised them, mentored, trained, and I have been a founder myself. And also founders have been my clients, and my very first business was a co-working space. Yeah. So what I see is that people are often really overcomplicating entrepreneurship. There are all these frameworks, there are business model canvas, and there are this design thinking principles, and this and that. And all of this is fine. Yeah. I do not think these are bad concepts. I'm still also using them. They're cool. However, that's not the point. All of those frameworks, structures, ecosystem elements, they all are there just to additionally help. But there are only 3 activities that any founder should do in the beginning: sell the product, build the product, and get the resources for it. So if you are already able to sell your product, that's amazing. That's kind of the first point. So then if you are able to sell it, especially in the very early stage, that means you'll have money to build it up, to develop it. So you can also sell before you build even, right? So if you're able to build the product, then you have the feasibility of it. It's also very important. So there's no situations when, like, there's a fantasy like, oh, it will be amazing if trucks would use dirt as a fuel. Yeah, but it's not feasible. Yeah. So actually being able to build it. And third one is like this: getting resources. What are the resources? It's other people and it's money. So, and what often founders do not understand, that they're alone. They're nothing. They're alone with their idea. Is just no power. There is no punch behind it. The strongest, like the biggest skill of a founder is to actually gather other humans around them, not even as team members necessarily in the beginning. Yeah, as helpers, supporters, people who will share their narrative, their ideas with the world, right? So this is actually the main resource investigation in the beginning, not even money. And then money comes like later with this. But this selling and building and getting people on board, basically these are just the 3 activities to do. And I'm putting the selling as the first point because, and that's like one of very, very few examples when I do agree with Elon Musk, but but he had a good point on this one, I should say. Yeah, saying that so many products are built when they are not actually needed, and they're like this beautiful, smartest solutions for something that nobody needs, nobody wants. So getting the signs that you will actually be able to sell it before you build anything is so important, and will make your life so easy as a founder. You do not need to force anyone to push it into their throats. Like, they will come for it. So, yeah, that would be.
And what do you think? What's a common misconception you've encountered in entrepreneurship, and how do you help founders stay resilient when things get challenging? Or what would you advise?
Yeah, I think misconceptions, there are like so many. I have a whole have a series of poems on misconceptions about startups, like funny poems. I would say one of the biggest misconceptions is the glorification of founding. That's actually what in the beginning attracted me, partially, yeah. So I saw how passionate founders are, so I wanted also to be one or have them around me. But another thing, I felt like somehow they're better, And I even, a few friends of mine have told me that when they're looking on dating apps, they're looking for founders only.
Really?
Yes.
Because for me, it would be like one of the major, not major, but like minor red flags.
Because you know enough of them. And yeah. But I think it's really interesting. It is a bit like glorified, yeah. So it is glorified for what? Independence. That's the idea, like, oh, the founders are so independent, for their agency and ownership, and also for success, yeah. So they're kind of successful. However, Like, let's start with the last one. The majority of early stage founders are broke.
Correct. Correct.
And they will stay broke for quite a while. If they're good founders, they will actually stay broke for quite a while because they will reinvest everything they get. They will not try to get like, an expensive car or whatever out of it as fast as possible, right? So then another one like ownership or agency. I think this one is true, but that actually, for you as a founder, from inside, this agency and ownership, it doesn't always feel good, yeah? Basically, you're building this, you're fully involved 120%, and then so many people will reject you and tell you no. So this agency and ownership from the side, it can look cool, but from inside, it's basically like you have to be resilient because you will be beaten mentally up constantly, right? So, and another one, the independence, I think that's a huge myth. So founders are deeply not independent for a very long time. So the only independent founders are companies who had got to certain commercial success, and they're like the solo founders. So those are independent. Kind of, yeah? But everyone else has too many stakeholders. Your customers tell you what to do, your investors tell you what to do, your team members tell you what to do, your co-founders have wildly different opinions on literally everything. So, I mean, I think it's very, actually, it's not an independent role at all in this way. Yeah. The only thing is like responsibility of decision making, and it's huge. Yeah. And that's the only true part of independence. You're independent to fuck up.
This is perfect. Like, I'm not a founder and I've never romanticized founding. Like, and I was never like, let me found something. I'd love to found something. Because especially in Germany, for me, it's such a huge, I'm just super scared of that, which is also not a great approach. So I admire people who do that, but I also understand that it's not glamorous at all for the first 10 years, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it is a very potent tool. So other things also can be tools. For example, writing is a tool, or creating content like a podcast like you do is a tool. Working as a part of a bigger company also can be a tool. There's so many tools, and founding is one of them. And so if it suits your purpose, you want to create something, and this is one of the tools you can use. I think seeing it this way is most realistic.
Yeah, that's a great way to see it. And you are well connected in the startup world. So what would be your advice? And you mentioned already that especially one of the first things, like you might not have money, but you should have a good network, people who are ready to vouch for you, people who are ready to talk about your idea when you're not in the room. So what would be your advice for early founders looking to build authentic relationships with investors, but also just generally around them? And like this question of networking, I personally, like I always knew, like everybody tells you, you need to network. For me, it was easier to found this podcast and start doing this, researching you for like 2 hours and then doing structure and then recording and then post-producing.
Yeah.
Then writing, you're like, hi, you don't know me. Let's have a coffee together. Like, it's wild to me. So yeah, for me, that was, as you said, one of the instruments, one of the tools. So yeah, what would you advise?
That's so true. I think there's a certain level of shamelessness needed to do this. So for pure networking, I actually have one tip. Like, it's very simple. Do not imagine that people are naked. I don't know who came up with this. It makes me feel way worse. Like,
you can just go to Babel for that.
Exactly. But everyone in front of me is naked. Like, how am I supposed to feel better all of a sudden? Excuse me. So the better advice from my perspective is to imagine you all are in kindergarten. You know, you're all like kids. Everyone is a child inside. You know that, like, you yourself have a child inside. Your friends, your parents, even, right? So everyone else, even the biggest CEO you've ever met, is a child inside. So kind of thinking about you are in kindergarten. So you come in kindergarten. What do you say? I say, "Hi, my name is Dash. Do you want to play?"
This is such a sweet way.
So but instead of play, I would say talk, right? That's our new way of playing. We're talking. And so that is, I think, the easiest way. And of course, you explain what you want to talk about. You can give more information, but the approach itself, the mindset behind it, like you're all in kindergarten and you're all our kids, I think it's very helpful. And the second tip is actually really not to take it personally. I think, like, imagine how many people write to you, how many you do not answer on LinkedIn, and then, like, that's the same situation with others, right? And on average, only fifth cold outreach is actually answered. On average, fifth, like number 5. So you reach out 1. No, they don't answer. 2, they don't answer. 3, they don't answer. 4, they don't answer. 5, they answer. So nobody answers. Sorry, nobody reaches out so many times usually, right? Everyone feels like, oh, if they didn't answer once, like, I'm too proud to write them again. But that's the reality of it, yeah? So that's two tips. And the third one, and I think that's for all of all of the majority of people who do not have this certain level of shamelessness needed, I would suggest to really focus on your personal brand first, so that you get then people reaching out to you. Put yourself in the situations and put the message out so that people know what you're about. So that means being active on social media of relevance. That means, I know, it's horrible, right? It means, posting, publishing content, especially if you had no connections in the entrepreneurial ecosystem and you want some. Like, you need to stand on the top of the mountain and shout what you're doing, what you're about, yeah? So I also would like to share, when I started just getting into entrepreneurial scene before I even found it, before that I worked in marketing and also in another country. So when I came to Berlin, I had an MBA, and during it, I was looking into entrepreneurial scene, and I thought that my marketing experience, like marketing manager basically, will be so useful for them. And then I started offering office hours, free office hours for like founders. And then I was really humbled because whatever I was doing for kind of a corporate and marketing was really not relevant for a startup. They needed it like absolutely different stuff. But this way, at least I started talking to them, right? Then I also was interested in, how investors pick, and I interviewed a bunch of investors, and I actually didn't even publish in the end anything. I just interviewed them. Never created any content 10 years ago, yeah? But what I created was a term, I took a bunch of term sheets and I created an average scorecard of what VCs usually want in startups. And then I sent it back to them. And I also shared it with some startups. I was just also evaluating. And this way I started getting invited to evaluate because of the scorecard. Yeah. And that was also some of the ways I started getting connected with many investors. Yeah. So be creative, basically, and establish yourself as a personal brand.
Thank you for these tips. Very valuable. Learning a lot, which is also was the point of this podcast for me personally. Let us talk about innovation and tech market and tech landscape. So yeah, you mentioned at the beginning, the world is changing. The landscape of tech is constantly changing. So are startups. And so in this ever-changing environment, how do you help, or what would you advise to startups in tech space to strategize, to create their 1-year strategy, 5 years plan? What should they prioritize?
I think that's a very it's such a high level question, generally for all tech startups. So I would say that for right now, technology is developing very fast. I would say it's not only for tech companies, generally just for any ventures, any enterprises. What I have noticed, I've been in the startup ecosystem for 10 years by now. And every year there would be a new trend. There would be something new. And each time it will seem that it is life-changing that very year. But maybe you have heard about the Gartner's hype cycle. It's a famous concept. There's a Gartner's hype cycle. Basically, what they say is that there is a first and media hype that kind of any technology goes through, or like most technologies go through. Then the hype falls down into thought of disillusionment, I think it's called, something like that. So where basically media is not interested at all anymore in this topic. And after that, a actual stable growth of proper business models start. And so almost every year there would be a bunch of hyped technologies or business models. In 2015, I remember it was all about VR and AR. It was like crazy. Then at one moment, I think mixed reality, it was a thing. Yeah. So this year,
I remember.
it's obviously AI. It doesn't mean, what I do not mean that AI will not have actually big impact. Also, the same was with blockchain. In 2017, there was like a first proper blockchain hype. And it does impact us now, but now with actual proper business models. And I think in long term, it's like a very impactful technology, AI even more so. But people like try to kind of jump on the wagon of the hype without really thinking about what is it about, how does it support them, and they put too much focus around it. So unless you're actually for example, this year, unless you're actually like in deep AI development, you're like really working with AI in depth, and unless that is so, then use this technology, but do not get like over obsessed about marketing it all around it. Yeah. So just include it somewhere like, hey, you're using AI, like sure, but kind of everyone is right now. So do not use a hype as your USP, because that will be very hard kind of to use.
And on this Gartner's hype cycle, right? Where would you think AI is right now? We peaked or we still haven't peaked?
Well, I think on the hype, it is right now on the top this whole year. It's just top. And I think right now it's going slowly a bit down. At one point, I would predict that somewhere maybe in 2025, end of 2025, you will see way less media stories about it, which will not mean AI will not be further developing like crazy, but there will be just less interest from people and media in the topic itself, because it will start becoming like the kind of this underlying material behind of almost all tech solutions. Yeah. So like internet happened at one point, you will not now come and say like, oh, we have the internet website here.
Yeah.
In
Instagram
your
page.
Yeah. You don't even mention it, right? Yes.
And have you noticed right now, or what in your opinion are emergent trends in innovation currently, and any of them you find particularly exciting?
Yeah. So one, I would say, is that there's really way more focus on sustainability currently. So we have seen many droughts and also natural disasters this year. And companies start seeing that, oh, okay, that will endanger us. Yeah? That's not just something very theoretical, something we have to do for CSR, something quite crucial. At the same time, there are lots of pressure from public authorities, from governments. Let's say in automotive industry or industrial sector or energy, there are new limitations coming to the companies. So that also creates more pressure. So there is more sustainability related, impact related pressure on big business, which means actually way more amazing opportunities for impact and sustainable ventures. because they can get this really cool big customers, right? So that I would say is a really big trend. Another big trend is, well, it's not a positive one though, but we do have a bit of a slowing down and more careful economic environment right now. So there was a big thing with everyone was waiting for US elections to be ready. I've literally have heard a few people telling me in this scene something like, well, we have everything frozen right now. We're just waiting who wins till doing anything else. And they were saying they do not really care even who wins. They just need to know which direction it will all go for their strategies. So I found it very interesting. So there was like this pause. And on top of that, we're kind of in the beginnings of an energy crisis, right? In the middle of it. And the winter is coming. So everyone's quite careful. And that means that more stable business models will be picked more. So usually, for example, B2B is preferred to B2C in like this more risk averse times. Less hardware, less kind of like very innovative solutions, something a bit more standard, something fitting existing very clear business problems. So that's another trend that I'm definitely seeing.
And if you would be, let's say you would be a founder right now, or you have an opportunity to be a founder, what kind of startup would you found?
Well, I'm kind of like working right now on the project. So it's a bit that I think will become an organization. And it's more about connecting different players. It's really connecting the stakeholders, I think, that are not working together enough, which includes investors, big business, academia, and impact ventures. So that's me, yeah? And I think that this type of question, it is very personal. The most important thing in founding is a founder product and market fit, yeah? So often people are over-obsessing about product market fit, but way more important is that both the product and the industry, they are truly connected to the founder. So my interests are all about supporting impact ventures, and it's I have experience in startup ecosystem building for like 10 years and venture building. So this is what my idea will be based on. But if a listener is working in accounting and is really passionate about dogs, yeah, maybe that should be a very different idea than mine. So
if there's someone working in accounting, please create an app that connects Dativ to whatever, I don't know, make it easier the accounting for small startups. Yeah, I could have a separate episode on that. But it's bizarre to me that still there is no proper platform that would simplify that.
I'm actually I'm mentoring a startup who's doing that. So
please
I'll
refer me like this like testing audience. I'd love.
Yes.
Great. What is here? Do I have? Don't like this question. I guess my question here would be like, again, you mentioned like building the teams, maybe like before you don't even build the team, you just gather people with the right skills around. And something I noticed this year, I used to be very rigid. With my career path. Like I studied politics. Okay, I'm going to work in human rights. I'm going to work for NGOs and social organizations. How that worked out for me. And now I'm like, I really regret that I didn't. And I come from Kazakhstan, like the country where you have to reskill and you have to like change all the time. You have to change your approach to your businesses. And so that should have been like part of my culture, like it should have been ingrained in me. But now I'm like, I became so unflexible in Germany with like switching and changing careers and changing companies, which exactly you mentioned at the beginning, that you're like, yes, I'm scared shitless, but I still do it. So for me, this like ability to reskill very fast, I think right now is the key. And so for companies aiming to build a strong cohesive community or like a team, what's one piece of advice you'd give them regarding this skill set of their team? Maybe not of particular founder or not of a particular head of operations, but for the team. How should they address it with limited
Are you
resources?
talking about startups or bigger companies?
I think startups, but we can take either.
Okay. I think they're just very different. Yeah. In a startup, early stage startup, the core team members, they're a bit jacks of all trades. Yeah. Sure, they will have specialization, but there will be lots of tasks that they never expected they would need to do. Yeah. So because of that, I think it's not as much about reskilling, but it's about learning by doing. So for a startup, it's very important to do the separation of tasks as much as possible and then identify learning paths within the core team. So, for example, in my very first company, what we did a bit of this separation, and my role was to go out there and bring revenues in. So my role was to deal with the customer side. And I fully jumped into it. I was, for example, absolutely scared of public speaking. And now,
Wow.
I'm now like doing, yeah, exactly. Now I'm doing professional public speaking. I'm also training storytelling and public speaking. So I'm training other people, founders, and not only. And so, but then it was 10 years ago. I really knew very little about it. I was very scared. I got like my first panic attack when I was supposed to go on the stage one of the first times. And so, but that was the learning path. That's what we have decided as a team was my role. And so I had an opportunity then to truly focus on this learning path. And of course, it not always was perfect. I made lots of mistakes, but I really can see right now, looking back, that within a year then, just a year, it was a growth in those skills that people don't get in 10 sometimes, you know? So that's definitely the separation of tasks and then focus on your learning path. But for other types of businesses, for like, or better to say, more mature teams, can be also like very developed startup or corporate or small business. What I see there that companies say they want people to reskill, but they don't give them space to do it. So there was a very interesting case. I had a friend who founded a training, a startup for like training and kind of reskilling courses. And when they were doing research and asking team members of companies, like, what do you want to learn? Guess what was the most popular answer?
Coding.
Oh, they thought that would be coding. It was Spanish. Learning Spanish.
What?
Because it was in Germany. Germans really like to go to Spain and Italy. And the first answer was like to learn Spanish. And second was, I think, learn Italian. So they just wanted like learn language for their holidays, basically, right? So it was very unexpected. And then they were trying to understand it a bit better. And I also actually, I had the fourth business I wanted to found was in reskilling, and I never did it in the end. Also, like I worked on it for 6 months, but we didn't create a legal entity. We didn't like start business activities in the end. So, and what I have learned also that companies, they do not really give time for their team members to do all this learning. So they say, oh yeah, you absolutely should become you need some leadership skills. And then they send them once per month on some tiny 3-hour training where they just feel lost.
And the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, why am I here? And there will maybe one really fun exercise there, but that's it. And so soft skills especially, they need lots of learning by doing, right? So that will mean giving them some leadership tasks if they want them to become a leader. Yeah? And it should be really thought through and should be really integrated. But that means every week, they will spend like 10 hours on some activity that is not directly maybe revenue generating within their role. And so I do not see this really happening much. So that's kind of with soft skills. But even with hard skills, also having, space and time for that for people to do. And the third element is aligning with the actual interests of those specific team members, the specific employees. And the issue is many employees, many team members, they actually do not know where they want to go. They have like this, I want to get more money and I want to have more status, but often they do not have really a guided career path. They don't even have it in their head. It's not like, I want to actually have more social interactions in my life, and I want to have this certain type of problem solving. Nobody thinks like that. Yeah. Only people who have like professional career coaches helping them. And so that's the third part that I see, like really aligning it, but also helping them even to understand what their path can be, what they're interested in. Yeah.
Great. Question a bit unrelated, but I really want to talk about it. I saw you mentioned already that you were a founder of a co-working space, and I saw that you also organized co-working festival.
Yeah.
And just this like culture of co-working in Berlin. And Motion Lab is my first co-working where I'm like a resident and I get to meet the community and things like that. And for me, last episode we found out that there's only 10 people running Motion Lab.
Yeah.
Which I assumed it was 30 or 20, just like by the scale of the space.
Yeah.
How did you decide that you want to found a co-working?
So I should say, when I was doing it, it was 10 years ago. It was 2015. Co-working space, like as a phrase, was not known. Like people would not know it. You'll ask someone on the street, what is a co-working? People will be like, I don't know, have no clue. So there were at that point 3 co-working spaces in Berlin. St. Aberholz is the very first co-working space in Berlin. Second is Better House. Third one was Ahoy. And there were like a few really small like co-working cafes more, but they were not like as professionally run to my knowledge. And so at that point, I just ended my studies, the MBA studies. I was actually looking for a job, but I felt very depressed doing so. So I was so inspired by this entrepreneurial scene in Berlin during my MBA. So I was doing this office hours. I was running entrepreneurship club. But then I kind of was trying to come back to reality because I thought it's not realistic for me right now to found. I'm out of all the cash. I spent it on my MBA. And I needed a job now. And so I was going for interviews with some corporate companies, with some consulting companies. But each time when I was going there, I just felt like tired of it already. I was like, how will I be starting now when I feel already kind of not interested? And so at that moment, some friends with whom I have studied, they were doing this project basically for a real estate company. And they noticed this new concept of a co-working space. And they needed someone who would be more in the marketing side for development of the business plan, basically, for this idea. And so they invited me to do this business plan together with them. And so that's how I joined them. And then the whole team fully changed. Out of the original team, only me and one more person stayed. And the other 5, I think, left Germany, left Europe also, all to their home countries all around the world. And me and my future co-founder, we stayed. And we, in the end, really went through with it. But it was not even my idea originally. But at that point, I remember how that was exciting to truly believe in a concept. So that I really believed in the concept of that people should work together in one space who do not belong to one company and just become friends and spend coffee breaks together and talk and exchange. And so this belief, it really fired me up for a few years, and I really created this passion about this model. And I still a big believer in the concept. But then at that moment, it was like literally not a known thing.
I'm a little bit running out of time, but I really want to ask this question. It's like my must. Again, multiple times founder, but you also said I closed the companies. And so this, I feel like we're not talking about this like letting go or like deciding now it's done and I'm wrapping up and I'm just letting it go. How or when or like what prompted for you to come to this decision? Okay, now this was like my passion project. I really loved it. But now it's time to say goodbye.
Yeah. So I left a few times, right? Right now I do not own any shares that I used to. So each time there was a very different story. But I would tell maybe about one project that was never even in the end registered as a legal entity. I call it this one like proper failure. Yeah. I'm very proud of it also. And so with that one, I've been working for 3 months with one we wanted to co-found, and we were working on the business model, figuring it out. And at some point, we realized that the way business model will work, it was in reskilling, that it would have to really focus on very high-level employees, and we were not really interested in it. So we wanted to do reskilling for like mass team members en masse, and to really help them change their careers and empower them. And for top C-level people, like it was kind of, they already have their life fine, you know? So, and then I found a third co-founder who's more on the product side. She was amazing. And we then changed the whole idea. And then with this new business model, we found out we really love it, but it's really not very monetizable. And I was like, okay, it was very clear after 6 months then that either we go this monetizable way, but then it's not the impact we want to create, or we go the impact way and then it's not really monetizable. It'll be some public funding and really small scale. And we didn't want to do it. And so that was basically, okay, then we're free. We can do something else now.
Great. 2 Blitz wrap-up questions. First one, is there a skill or habit you think every founder should prioritize?
Tough one. I wanted to say self-awareness, but actually it will make it worse for you. Maybe don't be too self-aware, or you will never found. And then you'll be like, oh, am I good enough for it? No. Action, like easy to act, easy to start, ease of action. Yeah, that I would say the best one.
Good. And the second one, is there one book or podcast or any resource, maybe an app you'd recommend for founders aiming to grow or like aiming to develop as human beings? Or anyone who's thinking like, I'm not good enough to be a founder?
Well, I like a book called Art of Possibility. I forgot the author. But it is about when you see certain limitations, you know, like look at what type of possibilities it has. It's very high level. It's very meta. It's not like lean startup, you know, which gives you like a framework. But for specifically the type where you're very unsure, I think that's a good one. That's the first one that comes to my mind, at least. Art of Possibility.
Great. Thank you so much for coming to the Change of Plans and spending this 1 hour with me. And it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's really exciting.
And that's a wrap on my conversation with Dash Markova. I loved hearing her perspective on early stage venture building, impact-driven startups, and what it really takes to navigate the startup world. You'll find all the useful info in the episode description. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, give us a shout out on LinkedIn, leave a review, share it with someone who is in the middle of their own startup journey. That would really mean a lot for me as a solo content creator. I'm Anaita Azizi, and this has been Change of Plans. Thanks for listening, and remember, change is never a failure, it's the first step. See you next time.